Hey everybody. I normally always start with music and I never really talk much except for a couple videos, but I really want to go full circle with this song, and this is one of the most, I would say, my favorite song that I've ever wrote and the most meaningful song I will probably ever write, due to the fact of it honors something very near and dear to my heart. And my uncle, Don Fee, was a United States Navy Seawolf. And I want to tell you the story about him. So something happened this past weekend that really kind of stopped me in my tracks. I was sitting there watching the new Dutton Ranch show, and Ed Harris, one of the lead actors on the show, walks into a bar and he has a certain hat on. And I don't know if anybody else caught that, but what I have on my chest here is a Navy Seawolf reunion t-shirt that they gave me because I sang this song coming up. I've sang at multiple reunions, but this is the song that I wrote for my uncle in honor of him and the men he served with. Well, the hat that Ed Harris had on is the HAL-3 Navy Seawolf hat. And I just want to tell you my story of how this came to be, how it's really made an impact in my entire life. And I want to document this for, my family and generations to come, because this unit, this particular Navy unit, the Seawolves, were only commissioned in Vietnam. There wasn't before, there wasn't after. There's some units after, but they're not called the Seawolves. They're kind of based upon. But as far as the Seawolf name, and this is where they started. So here we go. And again, this is my uncle. I will put some pictures up here to show you the references on all the things I'm fixing to talk about. My uncle, Don Fee, served in the United States Navy as a door gunner with HAL-3 Seawolves in Vietnam. And on July 1967, it wasn't long after they actually were officially the Seawolves. They were HAL-3 before, as I understand and as I've been told. That July, they were in a heavy gunfire. And from multiple accounts and guys that actually been there, they told me that their bird, as they call it, the Huey helicopter, got shot down. And my uncle got pinned under the helicopter and drowned. And the story is on the documentary Scramble the Seawolves, which is an amazing documentary. If you got to watch that, I'll link that below too. It's a really sad thing to know to think about that. It's a violent death, and he died for a reason. He died for me. He died for our freedom that we have in this country, and I think people take that for granted. My mom lost a brother. My aunts lost a brother. My granny, she never got over it. She lived to be 93 years old. She never got over the fact that she lost a son, especially in war. And just to think, sometimes when people say things about the country and, oh, we're not, what we used to be. And, all that stuff may be true. But we're still the greatest nation in the world. And actually the greatest nation that's ever been. And I believe my uncle had something to do with that. He made the ultimate sacrifice. He volunteered. He didn't get drafted, and he didn't dodge no draft either. He volunteered. So it's very emotional for me to think what my family give up so people could have freedom. I didn't expect to get into all that. So when I see something with military, Navy, always through my life, my granny as a kid, I can't remember how old I was, she gave me all his medals, which is right behind me here. His medals, and his flag sits up above that. I'll put pictures of that as well. Multiple air medals, Purple Heart. And you don't get those medals just by doing nothing. The way, and I got to go back to the start of how I figured all this out. So that there was so much hurt in my family, and my granny and my mom, they didn't like to talk about it because, it brought up so much hurt. He died in 1967. I was born in 84. So probably, I would say early 90s, mid 90s, maybe early 90s. My grandmother gave me his medals, give me his flag, give me a holster he had, give me a belt. And other than a few photo slides, that stuff I just mentioned, military documents that he had, that was it. It was in a footlocker. And the crazy part about it is, and I think there's a reason for everything. I think God made it this way. When my grandmother gave me that stuff, not too long after, their garage burnt down that had his footlocker in it. So the medals, the flag, I had all that stuff. Thankfully. So, yeah. So fast forward to, going through high school. I was in ROTC. I wanted to go to the military bad because all that stuff had an effect on me, very positive. I was from, that influence. I was always a patriotic person ever since I learned about all this. Love camouflage. Is still my favorite color. But fast forward to college, typical college age, 18. Internet was, I had an email address, pretty much, no social media. There was no Facebook at this point. I know there was Facebook and my college came along. And there was only like 60 people at the college that had Facebook, which is crazy to me. But anyway, sidetrack there. I got this idea. I was like, I'd really like to research more about my uncle. So I really took a big deep dive into the military documents, and I kept seeing this HAL-3 Seawolves, all this paperwork, these citations and things that he'd done. And like I said, thankfully we still had those because we always knew he was a sea wolf, but like he wasn't a SEAL. He wasn't a Navy SEAL. So we really didn't know what a sea wolf was, honestly. And I mean, most people to this day does not really know what a sea wolf is. But because of their unit, it's just so, it was, like I said earlier, it was only commissioned in Vietnam. So I researched it out, found on the internet, they had a website, seawolf.org, I think was the website. I think it still is, actually. I posted. Only thing I posted on there was my name, and I told him who my uncle was, and I just asked if there was any kind of stories or, any kind of, thing that anybody wanted to share with me. Holy cow, phenomenal. So many people reached out through email. It was fantastic. I was getting all these stories I'd never heard. He loved country music. It's crazy. It is crazy. I had a guy tell me he was a pilot, and my uncle was a door gunner, so he sat on the side of the Huey helicopter with the M60 and protected a side of the bird, side of the Huey. And the pilot told me, he said, Cody, he said, there was a lot of missions, dangerous missions, that I knew that, he said every one of them was dangerous, but he said in particular, there was several that I knew that I wanted Don behind me because I knew he had my back and he wasn't going to let nothing happen to us. And when I started getting these emails, it was incredible reading this stuff. So, anyways, I did not mean to get emotional. So I'm getting all these incredible stories, sharing it with my family. We're just loving it. It's just, it helped me. It helped me know him because obviously I'd never met him, and it was more stories than I got from really my grandmother and my mom. They just remembered him up until he was like 17, 18, and until he went off and joined the Navy. So I'm in college, researched it out, found these guys. They were incredible guys. Some of the guys I still talk to. Here's the thing. A lot of the guys that I've had a good relationship with, like phone calls, met them in person, most of those guys have passed on. Most of those guys are not here anymore. And that's, really when I started talking to these guys in 2006, I would say. 2005, 2006 is really when was when I went on the website. They had a messaging board. And so you got to think it's, a lot of these Vietnam guys, I mean, they're getting older. And that's a generation that is swiftly going away. But yeah, back to my college, still writing songs. I started playing guitar when I was 15. So, high school year into college, I'm still kind of fumbling around with guitar. Always been a songwriter since, 2 or 3 months I started playing guitar. I immediately wrote songs. And this is the part of the story that really kind of rings true as far as this. In 2007, it's my senior year of college, and I have recorded some music. I've wrote some songs, nothing really major. They all probably are very crappy now. Well, I get a chance to go to Washington, D.C. And as some of you know, Washington, D.C. is, for a small town country boy, it's a rat race. A lot of traffic, obviously. And at this point, I I had been to Hawaii, I'd been to Alaska, so I traveled some, but not extensively. Got to go to D.C., and there's only one thing I wanted to go see. That was just the main thing I wanted to go see was the Vietnam Memorial Wall, because I wanted to trace my uncle's name. Well, I got to do that. I got to trace his name at the wall. And if you've never been to the wall, I got to explain it to you. It's a huge piece of black granite. And I think the designers designed this into the thing where when you're stepping back from it, you see the big wall of granite and you see a reflection of yourself. So it's an extraordinary experience. If you haven't been, it's really extraordinary. Well, I got to trace my uncle's name, but the crazy part, when I went to find which panel and where exactly his name was, it shows, I don't know if it still does, but it used to in 2007. It showed their name, the panel, what year they were born, and what year they died. And I figured out on that day, he was 22 years old when he died. And in 2007, when I was tracing his name, I was 22 years old. My life was just beginning. His had ended. And that blew me away. That really blew me away. Just to think, again, I don't mean to keep getting emotional, but it really makes, this whole thing is almost like full circle that, ever since I was a kid, I've been interested in what my uncle done and everything like that. And, it's been awesome. It's been awesome to see the things I've learned, mainly the people I met, to hear stories. It's almost like I knew them by experiencing all this stuff. Well, it's still 2007. I start traveling a little bit for music, and I'm actually sitting on a beach in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I never will forget this. I have a little songbook at the time. And I had just, months prior, traced his name. Had traced a bunch of those names, so I kept it one in my songbook, his name. And I sit on the beach, and a lot of the guys tell me that Vietnam's one of the prettiest places, got amazing beaches. And I was sitting on the beach, and I just kept thinking in my head, I was like, reading some letters that he had, the guy's stories, it all kind of came together. And I was like, it was kind of what he had to do. He didn't have to sign up for another tour. I actually, one of his buddies told him, he was like, man, let's get out of here. And he actually went back to the States after a tour, and my uncle signed up for another one. And I think very early, it's like 2 or 3 months into that second tour, that's when the accident happened. So I'm on a beach in Fort Lauderdale. Get out my songbook, start writing just as songwriters do. Wrote this thing, and little did I know what would transpire from, really honestly, that song really just kind of just made a different way of my life in such a positive way. Give me, honestly, give me a vehicle to really meet people for whatever reason. And it was not the reason why I wrote the song. I wanted to write a song to honor him and always honor what the sacrifice he gave up and made. So I wrote the song, recorded it first in 2009 with David Castle, which the version of this song, if it wasn't for David, there wouldn't be all them cool licks in there. But anyways, so I wrote this song and I sent it out to anybody and everybody I could. Mainly, I sent it out to the guys in the Seawolves. They all loved it. They were blown away by it. And on the production side, I got this idea when we were recording the song to incorporate a Huey helicopter sound, because a Huey helicopter only has 2 blades, and it makes this certain sound that no other helicopter makes. And I've had a bunch of Vietnam veterans, just not of the Navy, but just veterans in general, will tell me, especially of that war, will tell me when they hear that sound of that Huey helicopter, they know that was help coming. And it gives me chills to this day. I've sang that for memorial services, the traveling wall, things of that nature, Seawolf reunions, and I've had so many vets come up to me and they tell me, Cody, when I heard that Huey helicopter, I knew we were going to be all right. So fast forward, several years goes by. I still keep contact with these people, and I've got messages from Billy Waugh, was a special forces guy, a legend in the community. Kyle Lamb, who's a friend of mine to this day. But there's a few Seawolves that I developed relationships with, and they've passed on, like I mentioned earlier. Bill Rutledge, Joe Crutcher, Barry Sloan, and there's Seawolves still living today. There's still quite a few out there. Mike Dobson's such a nice guy. He sent me a picture of the wall. It's just amazing. I could probably talk about the people and the men that I've met through this. I could probably talk about it for a long time. So I just wanted to give a huge intro that I really wasn't expecting it to be this long. But I just wanted to give an intro to this song. Okay, now I'm going to... I'll play this thing live, and I want to tell you real quick about the documentary Scramble the Seawolves. So mid-2015-ish, I was contacted by some people that put on the documentary Scramble the Seawolves. It actually won a Telly Award in 2019 for Best Documentary, and you can still find that on the web. Actually, I'll link that below so you can have access to that. And that's an amazing documentary that tells from conception to the end of their unit. It's phenomenal. It's fantastic. So I hope you enjoy the song. Know that I am humbled and honored to be able to sing this song and honor my uncle's legacy. One more thing. To circle back to the TV show, when I saw the hat, I know this video probably will not get seen by the creators of the Dutton Ranch show, but honestly, it blew me away when I saw that hat in that scene. And I know it's a TV show, but millions of people sees that, and that just makes me proud of my uncle. It brings back so many emotions wrapping up this whole thing. For me, it's almost like full circle moment, you know. And you know, some people might say, "Well, Cody's just a TV show." Well, you know, but when I saw that's just really cool. That's just really cool, and I want to thank whoever made that decision or kind of put that part in there. Because episode 2, he kind of goes into it a little bit, like what, you know, he was a pilot in a squadron. So thank you so much. Enjoy the song, and until next time. There's men who die to defend us all. There's men who die, the names on walls. Whoever said freedom ain't free, they're just gonna die for you and me. Up in D.C. there's a granite wall, 50,000 names, they all gave their all. He was my uncle I never made, the day my granny will never forget. When those men came in those navy blues and sold his story, the awful news. He fought and died and paid the price for the land of the free and home of the brave. He went toe to toe, stood his ground, he sure didn't let us down. He never said a word about what he'd been through, 'cause it was what he had to do. He was a Navy Seawolf, flew treetop high. More than once saw the VC bullets fly by, rolling straight down the muddy Mekong River. The sound of the Huey wouldn't make you shiver. Some gave all, but all gave some. He fought and died and paid the price for the land of the free and home of the brave. He went toe to toe, stood his ground, he sure didn't let us down. He never said a word about what he'd been through, 'cause it was what he had to do. He fought and died and paid the price for the land of the free and home of the brave. He went toe to toe, stood his ground, sure didn't let us down. He never said a word about what he'd been through, 'cause it was what he had to do.